Welcome everyone to the week 3 of Winter Split regular season press conference with head coach GrabbZ. First question, how impressed are you with the level of play that the boys have showed in week 3 compared to week 1 of LEC?
I'm only impressed or happy with the game against K-Cop yesterday. I think we've shown a lot of good qualities. I think the other 2 games were fine with lots of mistakes sprinkled in. So yeah, the K-Cop game basically is the bar we want to achieve, at least for winter, to have consistent showings of that level. But yeah, yesterday I was really happy.
Yeah, is it also kind of encouraging to see that when they're coming up against a high-level opponent such as KC, who have shown very high level and were fighting with us for first place, that the boys can step up and not crack under the pressure?
Yeah, absolutely. Also just the amount of effort they put into preparation, and you could tell the air was a bit different, right? Which is normal. I'm not going to pretend here and say that it's human to take every game the same. That's just not how it goes. And I think we have shown that we are the team to beat in playoffs. But then again, it has been best of ones, right? We haven't won anything yet. So just about to make sure that we have the same performance. First against Heretics, then probably against G2. I want both to be 2-0. And that just depends on how we are in preparation.
What were the voice comms like in that SK?
The voice comms, hopefully you're going to see them in a video, because actually today even I was laughing a lot backstage. Lots of just really silly stuff that you wouldn't believe they're playing like an official match. You would believe they're just in Flex QS5 at 2 a.m. after some drinks. The atmosphere was really nice, but even there I had to say to the guys, I was impressed by the fact, like, I'm not against fun itself, that they did all the silly stuff while still talking about the game and what's the next step to progress the game, and that I'm fine with it. So in that regard, I was pleasantly surprised that we didn't get too trolly, even though we were really far ahead.
Yeah, I heard Razor say at one point, like, okay, guys, let's focus on what we need to do in the game after a bit of banter. And Upset just taking every kill, flaming.
Yeah, Upset is the KDA warrior for sure. Not in a way that he's afraid of fighting, but he makes sure that every kill is his. Like, he really tries hard in that regard, which is something that I hope will not bite us at some point. But I think Marek is getting a bit annoyed at this point that we make a 3-man play with mid-jungle support and suddenly comes an Ezreal ult flying. And I think for the second time the split needs a kill. So maybe there has to be like a 1-on-1 meeting with those both to make sure that we're on the same page, but it's all in good fun so far.
As a coach, how do you approach Fearless Draft, and have you already been kind of preparing for it, knowing that we would be in playoffs since weeks ago?
I mean, we couldn't really prepare for it so far because other teams still were playing for playoffs that we scrimmed. So they were not too happy about Fearlessing already in scrims. So we're going to start doing it in preparation for best of 3 against Heretics. It's just, I think, especially in game 1, of course, nothing will change. But I think the focus will shift more from what you perceive to be OP as a champion to like the combinations of champions that might be good, right? What example can I give without showing too much info? Let's just say something that is not being played often, bot lane Lucian Nami, for example, right? After the first S tier picks are gone, after game 1 and 2, the synergy between champions will be more important, and suddenly these old combinations will come up more often. And I think this is something where actually the players can use the wealth of experience they have to like find something from 5 years ago that worked well together and then put out a Fearless Draft without having too much practice. So I'm not worried about adaptability at all in this team. And especially with someone like Mickey, who's like very creative as well in his thinking. I think we're gonna have always like a curveball to pull out.
Is there also the thinking coming in that we don't pick the most OP champs in game 1 to save them on game 2, or is that not possible with the amount of S tier picks right now in the game?
I think you wouldn't save S tier picks. I think you would just have a bigger eye on what is actually contested and what not, right? So if you have to choose between, example, 3 different top lane champions, you would more gravitate towards the one that you know the enemy team is playing a lot themselves, right? To deny it for later rounds as well. Then again, the teams of wider champion pools will get rewarded. And I think we're gonna get a lot of positive drafts because of it, just because these players can play everything besides that.
Yeah, speaking of that, how deep is Fnatic's champion pool, and from what you've seen against other teams that we've scrimmed or we've played on?
I think it's almost too wide that we kind of get lost in the sauce sometimes in draft because people want to get too creative. So it's basically we have to make sure that we have a really clear established list of like a tier list for ourselves, basically what we actually think is really good, and we don't end up trying to be too creative in every aspect. But for sure, this team will not get banned out or lose options in Fearless. I don't think that can ever happen. Also, so far, of course, it's coaching staff. We try to limit the amount of champs we play on stage that we didn't practice, which is something that in Fearless will happen more. So we're going to have more theory discussions with players about in this point, for example, today, maybe it was a Gwen angle, even though we didn't play Gwen in scrims. This is something I can reveal, who cares? But maybe this is something he can play without having it played in a team environment before, right? And I think these are the discussions will be more important.
Just some quick words on Team Heretics, your opinion about them and how you think the best of 3 is going to go.
Heretics is still a very young team, a team that's not afraid, which is something that you always have to respect, right? Even though they will go for plays which we deem wrong or inefficient because of whatever reasons, we have to be ready for that. And we have to be able to not die to those ganks or to those overloads that these teams tend to do. If you do so, I think it should be a 2-0. I think that's fair to say. But I must say I am impressed by them for the roster they have and the inexperience they have, that they still go on stage and play with like this forward-thinking style. Something that's lovely to see. And they will for sure be a team that, not in winter, but like let's go into late spring, early summer, I think they're gonna have a big growth. And not enough, hopefully, to like be a danger to us, but I think they're gonna be a good asset to the league, and I'm happy a team like this exists.
Cool. And what's the plan for the next few days, next 2 weeks? I know we have a couple of days off, but then how does Fearless factor into practice? How does that get implemented? Do you play best of 3s with your scrim partners and like play out a best of 3 Fearless, or is it single games like you did before?
There's still discussion in the league currently, because in the end, of course, you could always one-on-one discuss with the other coach what you want to do, but of course it helps if the league has a unified approach. The way it looks now, probably going to do like a two blocks are 3 games, doing Fearless and then reset them, which would be the same thing like on stage. For the rounds 1 and 2, I believe. We might do a 3rd block, depending how long it goes. But yeah, we're gonna have like 3 off days until Friday, just to make sure we have enough energy. We had like a really tight schedule the entire winter split, so we kind of want to reward the players for the good work they did, get some rest in, and then full speed ahead for the playoff preparation. And yeah, it's gonna be like, I think 8 days of full scrims, which would be enough to have a meta read. Mel will be enabled, which is something that we have to consider, and the champ looks very busted. So might be Powerman, red side, but we have to find out.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No, thanks as usual for the support to Fan Show on social media, on Reddit, on Twitter. Sorry for not giving you guys ZED, but I hope you guys can forgive me when we lift the shield in the end of the winter split, because that's actually what we care about, right? Not having the fun in draft.